Liberty is serious. If you don't have freedom, you don't have anything. And if somebody tries to violate your freedom, then what have they done? They've committed a crime. If there is no victim, there is no crime. Criminal activity carries with it that you victimize somebody. And how you victimize them is you step over the line of rights. You use your freedom to put somebody else in jeopardy. You steal their stuff. You harm them in some way. You threaten them in some way. You violated their rights. So you've created a victim. And it's important that people realize that, because those are the basics of individual liberty. If you violate that, you have committed a crime. It doesn't matter the level. It doesn't matter if it's a man committing a crime against another man. It doesn't matter if it's a group of men committing a crime against another man, or a group committing a crime against another group. It doesn't matter how big or how small the group is. It's still a crime. Even if you call your group government and you legalize your criminal activities, it is still a crime. So I wanted to address this comment that this influencer, and he's a pretty big influencer. He has over 1 million followers on Twitter, now known as X. And every time he posts something, he gets tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of views. Every month he gets tens of millions of views. So this guy is an influencer, a heavy-duty, heavy-hitting influencer. And he commented on New Mexico Governor Grisham's unconstitutional emergency declaration, which is an edict that disarmed the people, or seeks to disarm the people of New Mexico. Now, and how do you do that? How does a governor do that? How does somebody in a position of power disarm a group of people? What does that law carry with it? What is the implication? We are going to use the force and power of the state, of the government, in this case, the New Mexican government, and the police force to, well, first of all, the laws. She wants to create this temporary 30-day edict to criminalize innocent gun owners. So now in the eyes of the state, they are criminals if they walk down the street open carrying, or if a cop catches them concealed carrying. They are considered a criminal. Their property will be taken and they will be arrested. So what is the implication when you create a law like this? You are going to exact violence on innocent people who have done nothing wrong. And how are you going to do that, Governor Grisham? You're going to do that by the barrel of a government gun. So Ed Krasenstein here says, speaking about this video and about this edict, this disarmament edict by Governor Grisham, this morning I see a lot of people attacking New Mexico Governor Michelle Grisham for comments she made in a video. Below, you will see part of that video, but also additional context that is not being shared by others on social media. Yes, and I think it's important. Everything needs to be kept in context. And just real quick, people are saying that this Ed Krasenstein is like a CIA plant. I can't prove that. But what I can prove is what he has written. And if what he has written isn't in line with individual liberties, and actually it speaks against individual liberties, then what you're doing is endorsing criminal behavior. And that's what Governor Grisham is doing, I believe, is basically legalizing criminal behavior. If we see you, innocent gun owner, with a gun, then you're a criminal, and we are going to take away all your rights, up to and including, hey, if you resist us, you know what's going to happen. Yes, Grisham is suspending open and concealed carry laws in small portions of her state for 30 days. No, she said this, she made it very clear. This is statewide. Yes, she did talk about Bernalillo County, and she did talk specifically about Albuquerque, the city, but it was a broad brush. She goes, this is statewide. This is a statewide emergency edict that seeks to disarm innocent gun owners. So this it's not just in small portions of her state. And even if it was just in small portions of tyranny is still tyranny. And he says, now we don't know if her suspension is unconstitutional or not until it's challenged and decided on by a judge. But she said she's open to a challenge. We don't know if it's constitutional or not until a man in a black robe, a human being just like us, tells us if it's constitutional or not. Let's see. It says the right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Her edict infringes on that right to keep and bear arms. Point blank. So we need some black robe tyrant to tell us whether it's constitutional or not. It's absurd. Krasenstein says, unlike what many on social media are claiming, she never said that the First and Second Amendments do not exist. You don't have the Second Amendment if she says, hey, we're creating a law saying, hey, if our enforcers see you out violating my edict, in other words, living in the fullness of the Second Amendment, if you are out there exercising your rights, you will be arrested. If we see you out there thinking that you can be a free American on American soil, it ain't happening in Albuquerque. We're going to get you. And she said, I wish I can't arrest anybody, bemoaning the fact that she really wants to arrest everybody. What she did say is, quote, no constitutional right is intended to be absolute. Oh, really? Oh, really? Shall not be infringed sounds pretty absolute to me. According to the founding fathers, if the government's got that kind of firepower, you should have that kind of firepower, and ain't nothing should infringe upon that. Sounds pretty absolute. There are restrictions on free speech. There are restrictions on my freedoms. There are no restrictions. It's unalienable. You can't restrict an unalienable right that wasn't given by a human and can't legitimately be taken by a human. And to some degree, that's true, Krasenstein said. Really, to what degree is it true that your right to keep and bear arms is not absolute? To what degree is that true? In what world is that true? There are many states in America where there are enormous restrictions on who can carry a firearm on the streets. That would be unconstitutional. That would be unlawful. That would be a violation of natural rights. That would, in other words, that would be wrong. A wrong is the opposite of a right. A right is the opposite of a wrong. So you're promoting wrong here, or you're tipping the hat to wrong. So far, these restrictions have held up where? In the halls of the Supreme Court, the halls of injustice. I don't know if her law will hold up, but to claim that she wants to tear up the Constitution is an extreme view on this. I would say the extreme view comes from the person who wants to use a government gun to force you away from your rights. I would say that was pretty extreme, Ed. Ed, if you see this, I want to talk with you. Let's do a Spaces and let's talk about the fundamentals of liberty, because it truly is basic. If you want to carry a gun, Ed, nobody has the right to tell you you can't. And if they do force you away or attempt to force you away from that right, they have committed a crime against you, Ed. Unbelievable. She's literally calling for a challenge so that the courts can decide. Laws are ruled unconstitutional all the time, and perhaps this one will be too. And then he uses this appeal right here. Why aren't these same people outraged that Trump literally said, do you throw the presidential election results of 2020 out and declare the rightful winner, or do you have a new election? This is Trump talking. I remember when he said this because I dealt with this in a video. Listen to what he says. A massive fraud of this type and magnitude allows for the termination of all rules, regulations, and articles, even those found in the Constitution. So Trump has done this before. He's called for martial law. And right here, he calls for the suspension of the Constitution, the termination of the Constitution. What does that make Trump? Same thing it makes Hillary, same thing it makes Obama, same thing it makes Biden, and the same thing it makes Governor Grisham. It makes them tyrants. If you're going to talk about liberty and you're going to be faithful to liberty and what is true, you got to call out all the tyranny, the Democrat tyranny and the Republican tyranny, the elephant tyranny and the donkey tyranny, the conservative tyranny and the liberal tyranny. And if you don't, you're a hypocrite. You're just choosing sides. You're in the cult of personality or the cult of the cult group. So there's more to this, but I just wanted to, and some people were making some pretty good comments in opposition to what Ed Krasenstein was laying down here. But I want to just emphasize this guy is a social media. He's a heavy duty, heavy-hitting social media influencer who's influencing the minds of a whole lot of people who, look at this post right here. This post right here got 1.7 million views and crazy interaction. And there's a lot of people agreeing with Ed Krasenstein as he tips the hat to tyranny and actually says, hey, you know what? It treats the Supreme Court as though they were gods. You know what? These gods gave themselves the power of judicial review in Marbury versus Madison in 1803. They basically said, hey, we can unilaterally tell you what the Constitution says and in essence write our own laws. They can completely dismantle, if they wanted to, the Second Amendment and tell you shall not be infringed doesn't mean shall not be infringed. And by the way, they did do that. The National Firearms Act back in 1934, they did do that. And they say it's not a violation of the Constitution. Matter of fact, I think he says that here. Yeah. He actually gives the example of the National Firearms Act right here. He's responding to this guy and he says, I get all of this. What I'm saying, though, is that we have limitations on our Second Amendment for over a century. Until the Supreme Court says it's unconstitutional or not, it's just a battle of opinions. Guess what? They're treating people like this, and I see this a lot, not just with this Ed Krasenstein guy. They treat the Supreme Court as though it were made up of superhumans, like people from another planet who are far more intellectual and better than us and are morally superior to us. It's ridiculous. When the Supreme Court makes a ruling, it's called a decision. It is an opinion of the court. It's the opinion of other men that conflicts with the opinion of other men. But they're calling this stuff the law of the land, and it's not. For example, the Supreme Court has held that the National Firearms Act provision that criminalizes the possession of certain guns is not in violation of the Second Amendment. So a group of men can tell you what kind of guns you can or can't have. And if you have the kind of guns they tell you can't have, you are rightly viewed as a criminal just because some guy arbitrarily decides it. This is cult mentality. This is checked into the cult of person. Oh, the black robe justices said so. Okay, I guess it must be true. That's what we got to do or we're going to be rightly punished. That's the voice of a member of a cult. And that's what government is. Government is a religion because it's based on a construct of belief that people have the right to rule you and you have the obligation to obey their rulership, or according to the cult guidelines, you're going to be rightly punished. Leave your thoughts about this. If I'm wrong about this, I want to know. Give me my lumps. The price of freedom is now and will always be eternal vigilance. And indifference to this notion like this is the means by which we secure our own oppression. Stop securing your oppression and start today. I will see you in the next video.